You know, a lot of people see me catching fish in my videos, and I will get a lot of comments like, where exactly are you? As if there's some magic spot you can go to catch fish. Actually, I think when it comes to myself, when I ask myself, where can I go to catch fish? I don't really rely on particular places, more like something that you see here, a cut where water goes through these two islands. It's hard to see because there's another line of trees behind it, but right in front of me there's a spot where, as the tide's coming in, the water is flowing between those islands. And I just know that somewhere over here there's probably going to be snook hanging out, waiting for bait to come to them. That's just fish's behavior. You can see me throw the lure the second time parallel to the trees. I almost hit the trees, I'm that close. And I'm like, I know there's fish here. And sure enough, I find myself a snook hanging out near the trees. And that's what it's about. That's what I mean by teach a man to fish. To look for these types of places. Knowing that the water was flowing past those trees that were hanging over the water. And the fact that there was a place back there for these little snook to hide against the current and just comfortably sit there and wait for bait to come to them. You can start to recognize these spots when you look for them, and they're all over the place. This little snook I caught here, I promise you this is not a spot that I fish too often. I've been here before, but seeing the way the conditions were, I knew that fish like this would be hanging out there. Let's put him back home. So the purpose of this video really is to just try to get you guys, the new guys out there, to recognize something like this. There's the water coming in past that point that I'm fishing. It's never a guarantee that you're going to catch fish, but if you can recognize a place where fish would probably hang out, again, you can find them all over the place. I sat and I worked that point for quite a while, thinking to myself, there's got to be fish there, there's got to be fish there. And a lot of times I'd be right. This particular day, I didn't catch anything besides that one fish, but knowing that those conditions were so good, I actually came out the next morning with a different kayak, but to the same spot, because I knew the conditions would be the same, not because that spot was any kind of magic. You see ahead of me there's a line of trees, and what I did is, thanks to the little pedal drive there, I was able to inch my way up against the current with the wind at my back. This was just perfect conditions. The wind would help my lure to travel really far, and then I was pulling the lure back with the current right parallel with these trees, and I just knew that these conditions were so perfect that there had to be fish somewhere along this tree line. One of the virtues that you want to teach a fisherman if he wants to be successful is patience. If you don't catch something right away, you just keep working it. As long as you know that those conditions are right, there's really nothing else you can do. Sometimes the fish just don't want to eat. But if you're persistent and patient, and you can recognize the right kind of conditions, sooner or later, you're pretty much sure to catch yourself a fish. If nothing else, you get to enjoy a beautiful morning like this. Okay, patience is fine when you're on the water, because you don't really have any other choice. But when you're editing a video, you get to speed things up a little bit. Finally, on this cast, all my work pays off for me. I feel a bump, and then boom, there he is. I slowed my retrieve a little bit after I felt that initial bump, and the fish came out from under those trees and clobbered my lure. One other little thing I happened to be doing today was I had noticed that the bait in the area was very small, and I had a small lure on. To compensate for the small lure, I was using 10-pound braided line, which is very, very thin. It enabled me to throw that very lightweight lure pretty far. I just had a feeling that the bigger lures weren't going to be as effective. Now, I can't honestly say whether or not using a little tiny lure on this particular day is the reason I was catching fish. However, it did fill me with a lot of confidence, knowing that that's the type of little tiny bait fish that I had seen swimming around. There's another beautiful fish that I caught, using the knowledge that I figured out on my own, plus the things that people have taught me. It's pretty cool stuff. Nowadays, now that I know where to look and the type of conditions to look for, I can pretty much go anywhere where there are mangrove trees and a good amount of water flowing past them, and kind of know how to present an artificial lure in order to get a fish to bite. This long line of trees here all had similar conditions, so I worked the entire length of trees. Every once in a while, a fish would come along and take my lure, just like it was supposed to happen. This time it was just a small snook, but for the love of fishing, I don't care. It's just a wonderful thing to be out on the water and have a rod bent. And one of the downsides to using a very light line with a very small lure is that if you happen across a big fish, you may not always land them. Sometimes the fish are a little bit too much. But that's part of the sport, I guess. You win some, you lose some. I watched that fish swim under that log, break me off, and swim away with my brand new lure. Oh well. I happen to be losing a lot of these lures lately. I think the fish really like them. What I like about them is how small they are. They seem to match the hatch just perfect. And by that, I mean that the little fish that are swimming around all over the place up against these trees look very similar to this lure. Fortunately, I had an extra one, so I tied him on, and I kept at it. It's a hard thing to do to leave when the fishing's good. Especially when there's all kinds of bait around. There were a lot of mullet too. Check out the school that I happened on. I don't know who was more freaked out, that school of fish or me. The bite eventually did start to slow down, and it happened to slow down when the tide also slowed down. And there was probably a bunch of things that I was supposed to be doing anyways, so I called it quits and headed back for the marina. There's no worries though. I know the fish will be here again next time I come out here. Hopefully you guys learned a thing or two during this episode, and if not, then perhaps you might have been the one that taught me through comments and such, and teaching me how to fish. I appreciated everything, which is why I love giving back like I do. Sure do appreciate all you guys watching. I'll see you next time.